All right. Okay. So tell me if at some point, can you see my screen right now? Okay. All right. Tell me if I don't move on and I get talking and I get, and I miss it. So this session is the meat of the application. And so last week, I gave you a lot of information about where to start looking for research. And again, that'll be out there. The PowerPoint is on the Limestone website. If you go to Limestone Charter Association and go to our schools, you'll see where it says start a new school. Go to that page. The PowerPoint is already there. And then in the next couple of days, there'll be a link for a YouTube channel. That's the actual presentation. Okay. So like last week, and I just want to go into a lot more conversation about this part of the application, because the rest of the application is very compliance driven in some ways, or every charter school kind of does it the same way, like your lottery, your governance, those things right there that aren't as hard to write. This is the hardest part of your charter application to write, because this is the meat of your school. So documenting the need. If you don't document the need in the community, then you're not going to get very far in this process. You have to, and so when you tell me the need and you're describing it, this is not a half a page deal. This is a several page deal of you telling me the need and you documenting what that need is and how you came up to have that need. So if you're trying to serve kids in poverty, you're trying to serve like Damon's trying to do, try to kind of second chance to get back on track situations. Or if you have a particular theme that's not offered in your area, then you need to document all the programs that are in your area. And so you can show the deficits in programming in your area, that's what you want to do. Okay. So do your research on what's offered in the school's area. Don't replicate something that's already being done that's supposedly unique to that school, because you're not going to draw very many kids when that's already an established school. You can come up with all kind of documentation, guys. I'm not going to tell you have to have A, B, C, and D, and it's, down the list. I'm going to tell you, be creative in finding the data that you need, whether that's from your parent meetings, doing your research online, and that's all in the last PowerPoint with the links on it to get you to those places where you can do some research. But tell me something unique. Tell me, describe your area where you want this school to be. Describe the demographics. Describe, how much business is in that area. Anything that tells me this is what we look like, and this is why we want to put this type of school here. Okay, the SDE website, again, has the research portal on it that you can use, and I'll leave these links up here for you. There's the research and data analysis page. If you go back to the last PowerPoint, that I showed you how to do a FOIA request from the State Department of Ed for information that's just not on the website, or you might want very specific information, and you can do a FOIA request for that. And that's in the last PowerPoint. And I did show you how to, if you just have trouble finding this, just Google SCDE head count, and it'll bring you to that page, and you can look at every school in your area and you'll know how many kids they have by race, by gender, how many that are in poverty. You'll find all of that data on the website, and you need to know all that. It's very important, because this is what should be driving your educational program. Now, there's other places other than the SDE to find this information. The Sheriff's Department, right? Particularly if you're trying to do a second chance school, these kids have probably been involved in the law, and a lot of the officers know them. So you're getting a lot of information about where to look for kids and areas that would be good for you to go and visit. Colleges, university, county government, the census, all of these things are just other places to find information, and your Chamber of Commerce. So like, you might want to look and say, okay, 5 years ago, we had this much business and we dropped. So we're losing people, and this is why. And we want to start this kind of school to get the training to get those businesses back, or something like that. Particularly if you want to do like a career and technology education program that's unique, that's really good information. So I need to see lots of detailed research, and I need to see different places that you found to document the need of your community. So let's talk about interested parties. Now, as you put together your planning group, I want to be clear that nobody really in South Carolina, even though we do have some predominantly African-American communities and predominantly white communities or Hispanic communities, you need to come together as a group and be diverse, because every school serves someone in those communities. And so when you put together your plan for marketing, when you put together your group, when you're doing any publicity out there where you're doing live events, make sure that your group is diverse so that you're pulling that kind of information, and you're going to get more information if you are a diverse group as opposed to if you are not a diverse group. Now, one thing that I want to be clear that you can do now in South Carolina is that you can have a single gender school. So you can say, I'm going to have an all boys school, I'm going to have an all girls school. But what you cannot do is say by anything other than that. So you can't say, I'm going to have a school for just white kids or African-American kids or Hispanic kids. You cannot do it by race. You can by gender. But if you're going to open a single gender school, and none of you have actually told me you want to do that, but if you were to get to that point of thinking that you want to do that, you need to justify why it needs to be that. And that's a little harder than you think as to why you'd want to do a single gender school. You're putting these people together, this diverse group of people, so that you can pull a diverse group of kids. And that's what we're looking for. Because, guys, when you start to write, one of the things that you've got to justify is what your enrollment's going to look like. And you must be within 20% of the local district or the targeted student population if you're telling us that you want a targeted population. So if Jimmy tells me he's in Cherokee County, then we're going to compare his enrollment data when he actually has real kids to what Cherokee County looks like. And he has to be within 20% of each demographic. Now, Damon is saying, well, I don't know that I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a targeted population. And when you write that targeted population and you tell me that's what it is, you got to go do the research and tell me what is the racial breakdown of that targeted population, because that's what you're going to be judged on by that. So if you're going to be in Richland County and you're going to pull like second chance kids, or you might go the other way, Damon, and you're going to pull all the kids that are gifted and talented, and you have a targeted population there, you still have to tell me the racial breakdown of the targeted population. But if you don't have a targeted population, it is your entire student body based on the district, not the local school. Now, if you're in Charleston, there's you actually would have a different board, not the Charleston board, because they have sub boards, but not for anybody else that I know of. So be cognizant of that. If you want to recruit a diverse group, you have to have a diverse group. And I want to see a diverse group. Okay. Now, when you're out there recruiting, because this recruiting part is part of documenting the need for the school, you've got to be able to tell the readers of these applications, hey, we're going to start with 350 kids, and I've got 300 people right now telling me I want to be in this school. Okay, you need to have parent signatures. You do not have to submit those parent signatures, but you must take those parent signatures that you have and have a notary notarize them, and so that we know somebody laid their eyes on 300 parent signatures, but we don't want to know who those are. We do not want to know who those are. That's for you. So get a notary, get them notarized, and when you turn in, that's going to be one of your appendices. Documenting student need is huge, 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 huge. It is more important to have student need than it is to have all these letters from communities members that are, the bankers or the politicians. That's important, but student need is where all your money comes from. Every dollar you get comes from a kid sitting in a seat. So we're really going to be looking, if you want to start with 350 kids, that you have at least 350 parents telling us that they're interested. Now, will all of them come? No, they won't. And we understand that. That's why we're telling you, try to shoot for your full number. If you could have more than that, awesome. If you're not exactly at that, then tell us, what is your marketing plan to get to that? Because anybody's willing to tell you, sure, yeah, I'll sign it for you. I'll sign it for you. And don't go to Walmart and just ask people to sign it for you. You need to have, these are people that are really interested in your school, because that becomes the list of people that you're recruiting from as soon as you get approved. But this must be notarized and it must be real names. Okay. Let me move a little thing up here so I can see where we're going. Now, anytime you have a question, just say, stop, wait, I have a question. All right, so here's where it gets hard to write. And this is where you really have to do some real processing. All right. You got to connect the need and the educational program in your area. So one of the things that Jimmy said is they consolidated a bunch of schools in his area. So Jimmy needs to really thinking about, okay, what would make people want to not go to that consolidated school and come over here to this charter school? So yes, it's a shorter drive and it is a community, but understand you're pulling from everybody in your county and counties beyond. So it's not just about recruiting in the neighborhood. It's about recruiting largely all over your county and any county that is somewhere a parent can drive to. So the relationship though between the need, which yes, there's consolidated schools and so they're great big schools and nobody wants to send their kid to a great big school in middle school, right? Or even elementary. But there's that need's got to happen. So those two things have to come together. Jimmy's got to figure out what need am I feeling and what kind of educational program can I bring to the county that is going to be a fulfillment of a need. So one of your things you're going to see is, well, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but there's a whole list of programs you can choose from to think about, but you have to make sure that you're choosing it for the right reason. At Limestone, we are not going to tell you to be any type of school. We are not going to tell you that. What you choose to do, we expect you to work through that, choose it on your own, and prove to us you know why you want to do that. So you're going to fill the void, you're going to tell us how to correct the problem, or you're going to alleviate in any kind of need in the community. So you might say, guys, I want to start a school that's going to have wraparound services, because in order for the people in our community, because our school's closed, they have to drive like way away, if they even have transportation to get there, for other services that they need. So what we're going to do now is we're not just starting a school, but we're going to start a community center with that school that has wraparound services for counseling, maybe a clinic, anything like that, that you can gather money from other sources to help you put into making all those wraparound services happen. Because you're not going to get enough money from the state to make those happen. But you certainly, if you went out there and said to the community, we're going to put this together, will you help us? You're going to find a lot of help. So please think through this hard, like really think through this of addressing the need in your community and what is going to fill that void. Okay, the educational program that you're choosing needs to be innovative. And just writing an application that says you're going to do all the things that a traditional school does, that's a good traditional school that does best practice, is not innovative. Charter schools are meant to be testing grounds for new and innovative thinking, right? Okay, but pick something like one or two things and stick to those things. Please don't give me an application that's got like, these are the 10 innovative things we're doing, because you're going to be so unfocused that you're not going to be a good school. Because all 10 of those things are probably not something you came up with when you did your needs analysis of your community. What is your innovative need? I mean, your innovative program. Pick one or two things, and then tie it back to the need that you have. So also, being the only charter school in your district is not an innovation. It might be you're the only choice, but that's not an innovation. So you still have to come up with something that's a choice. And just doing it better is not innovative. So you might give me an application that tells me your goals are that you're going to score higher on the state testing. That's not innovative. That's not, you really, it's going to have, I don't put a lot of store in the goals and objectives you write in this application. That's not going to be a big place where I'm looking at you and making decisions. Because you really need to know what your population is and where they are when they come into you to know whether or not how you're going to score. So while you still have to write those goals, I'm not looking for you to tell me that you're going to be 6 percentage points or 10 percentage points above the state average. I'm looking for you to tell me, how does my innovative program fill the need? And here's the goal I'm setting for that. Okay, so here's an example of a whole bunch of different types of schools, and this is not an exhaustive list, but I want to go through these a little bit because I want to make sure we're on the same page when we talk about these things. So STEM, about 10 years ago or whatever, became the new thing, right? And then you had all these schools want to be a STEM school, want to be a STEM school. And I'm just going to tell you, not, just because you offer science and math does not make you an innovative STEM school. So if you're going to be an innovative STEM school, I want to see everything in your curriculum pairing back to science, technology, engineering, math. You can be a leadership academy. I want to see a curriculum about leadership, not just calling yourself a leadership academy. I want to see, what are you doing to create the leaders? Project-based. Real project-based is not just hands-on learning, right? So if you're writing an application and it says, oh, we're going to teach all the standards and then everybody's going to do a project, that's not project-based. That's project-oriented. Project-based is where you're teaching those standards through the application of the project. And that is very hard to do. So if you're going to tell me you're project-based, I want to see a ton of professional development in your application that tells me how you're going to teach your teachers to do that, because teachers are not taught that. When they come out of traditional schools, when they come out of college, they don't have any idea how to be project-based, because that's not how traditionals run, right? Again, I said you can be single gender if you want to be an all-girls school. Certainly, what are those things you're trying to do? Why do you want to be an all-girls school? Middle or early college, which is where you're offering a lot of dual enrollment, which is great if you want to do that. But tell me why you're going to be better than the local school that already offers dual enrollment and dual credit. The arts, that one is another one. It's like project-based. If you're going to be an arts school, I need to see an arts curriculum and how you're going to tie in English and math and maybe social studies and science into those arts. It's not that we're going to be an arts school and here's our regular curriculum and then we just have, everybody has to take art, music, drama. It has to be more than that. You can be an art school, and we need more art schools because we really, really do. But tell me what that's going to look like. How's that innovative? Blended learning is when you want the kids to come to your building, but they take their online classes. And so there's some that they might take in-person instruction, and then some that they take online, but they're still in the building. And then language immersion, obviously, there's only 2 language immersion schools in South Carolina right now, and both of those are Chinese, East Point and East Link. So show me a language immersion school that is not Chinese. Maybe it's Spanish. Surprisingly, we don't have any school that's language immersion for Spanish. It could be German, or you could do dual languages if you want to do. So those are just examples. Now, you might look at those and say, well, there's a bunch of those already in my district. Okay, tell me how your school is different than that one in your district, because 1, it better show up in your research, and 2, I'm going to go look. So really focus on how you can be different than they are, even if there is a program. That program might only take 100 kids. Well, that's great for those 100 kids, but that didn't really help a whole lot of people, right? So it might be that you don't look too much different than that program, but you're offering it to so many more kids. That would be okay. All right. All right. Now, your educational plan, when you get in, you're starting writing this application. I just don't want to know about your curriculum for your educational plan. I want to understand, how does everything in your school connect back to this educational plan? It's all part of it, all the activities you have, your calendar. Let's say that you want to do a modified calendar. Now, you're only going to get paid for 180 days. That's all you're getting paid for. So if you go 190 days or 210 days, you are not getting paid for those days from the state. So 180 days all you get. But you can have a modified calendar where the kids don't have a whole summer off, like they have a 2 weeks here and 2 weeks there and 2 weeks here and 2 weeks there. You can do that because you don't want those kids to have a loss of learning in those summer months. So you want to, and that's part of your curriculum, is that you might be dealing with kids that just cannot take off 3 months or 2.5 months and pick back up where they started. So you just can't afford to do that. So you're gonna have a modified curriculum. That's part of your educational plan. But I need to know all of that. So think of big picture. The questions are gonna ask you, what's a traditional day look like? So you gotta process through that for sure, right? Again, stop me at any time and ask any question. If not, I'll just keep going. Because like I said, we only do these for an hour and I've got another board meeting I have to do. So understanding your chosen curriculum. So this again is super, super important. If you want to buy a curriculum, then you need to make sure you research how much that curriculum costs. Who is it intended for? What's special about it? Is it something you can sustain over years and years and years? Does it cover, will it grow with you? So if you're growing up to all the way to 12th grade, it's just going to continue all the way up to 12th grade. How much professional development is with it? So it's okay that you're going to say, hey, we're going to buy this curriculum, this math curriculum, and that's what we're going to do for these 12, do it from K through 8. I'm okay with you doing that and telling me that, but I need to know you truly understand everything about that curriculum. Because again, if you tell me that, I'm gonna go do my own research and figure out, does it align to state standards? Now, having said that, I want to be clear. Everybody who's trying to sell you a curriculum is going to tell you it will align to state standards. I would bet money that you're going to go in there and have to tweak it to really make it align to state standards. Because they're trying to sell to every state in the country, and we all have different standards for the most part. Right? So you might tell me it says that, you've got to show me that it does. But feel free. I mean, if there's curriculum out there, you see it and you want it, that's great. If you are
question.
Uh-huh.
With that curriculum, if it's one that state, pretty much everybody around the state already using and implementing. So, I mean, like I said, I know ingenuity is one that we big on it that I was thinking about. So
okay,
something like that is already pretty much what align with everything we need to align with. Or
so even ingenuity, I'm going to tell you that you got to go in it and make some tweaks to it. Again, because they're trying to sell to everybody. And yes, lots of people use Edgenuity or Edmentum, Study Island. There's all sorts of things that people already use. Show me some research that tells me how many people in South Carolina are using that. And I also would not suggest that that's the end all to be all for everything, right? You might just use that for certain classes. Tell me that. That's okay. Particularly, a lot of schools, particularly high schools, will use that for career and technology education classes because they can't find a teacher, or a foreign language class because they can't find a teacher and they'll use the Edgenuity classes to make up for that. So that's fine. It's perfectly fine. All my schools use some kind of online program within it now because that's just where we go, right? It's totally fine. Just, again, tell me what the research is and why you're using it and how it fits in. So absolutely, totally okay. Okay, I like to think of it this way, and I hope when you're doing this, you're going to think of it: the educational plan, the mission, and the educational plan, the need, the educational plan, and the mission are like a three-legged stool. You need all of those things to prove your case. Now, I want to talk just a little bit about the mission. Do not sit down and write your mission first. Don't do that, because writing this educational plan and your program and putting it to your need, all that's a process. It's just a process, and you're going to think a lot about it. You're going to write some, and then you're going to rewrite some, and you're not going to like that. And you're going to say, let's think about that. And as you do that, your mission will come along in the process of that. I don't like to see groups kind of say, okay, here's our mission. Now we're going to go out and prove to you how we're going to do that, because you're trying to fit all this in because you came up with this great sounding mission. Your mission should really be saying, this is what we're going to accomplish. But in order for us to know what we're going to accomplish, we had to figure out the need, what we're going to do, and what's the result of all that. That's your mission, right? But you need all three of those to really work around that. Your mission should be in every room of your school building. It should be on every document you put out. It should be read at every board meeting. It should be read at every public meeting for whatever, because that is what tells the community this is why they exist. And you got to know it and feel it and be able to defend it, right? Okay. Okay, your mission statement. I kind of got ahead of myself, didn't I? When you write your mission statement, when you get to the point of saying, okay, we've got it. We've got our line. This is our mission. It should be a clear and succinct representation of the school's purpose for existence. It should be the end result of the journey. It is not about the description of what the child looks like when they leave, or what the child is prepared for in life. So again, if you're a STEM school, your mission is creating the next generation of scientists, right? So your end result is your kids are going to go be scientists and create something awesome in the world. That's what your school exists for. It is not a description of the efforts of the adults. It is not about you teaching a certain curriculum. It should not be 4 sentences long, and it should not include a lot of educational jargon. And I've given you kind of a bad example and then a good example. And these basically are just for you to work on as you go through that. But it's not about the inputs. Your mission is not about the inputs. It's about your outputs. It's about what you're creating. So, and you see, this bad example of how long that mission is, the community's not going to know that. They're not going to be able to say what you do. You're not going to be able to say it off the top of your head. So now, this is huge. If you cannot recite your mission, then change it. If your mission is so wordy that you couldn't say, you have to have it written down to say it, change it. My current school, I had this conversation multiple times, and we're in the process now of rewriting a mission that was written years and years and years ago. And it's very wordy, and it doesn't really tell who we are and what we do. It should tell what you're creating. Okay. As you write your mission statement, and you know what, that's kind of like the first thing you put on your application, but it's kind of one of the last things you write along with your executive summary. That's the very last thing you go and write. Don't write your mission until you know what your need and educational plan are, and have a vision of what you want your students to achieve. I have given you a link here. That's a really good blog. It's just an article about how to write a really good mission statement. But that'll just be on the PowerPoint, and you can go check that out when you're ready for that. Okay, that was a quick and dirty, and I want to just go back and reiterate a few things here. Okay, do not go pick an educational plan until you know what the need in your community is. And your community doesn't have to be extremely poor. It doesn't have to be, you know, we have bad test scores or anything like that. But every community, no matter the socioeconomic, no matter the racial makeup, no matter of the testing that you have, has a need. Your need could literally be a lack of programming that is offered in your community, in your current school district. Because one of the things that charter schools do is that they promote competition. And you will see when you start offering these unique programs that the traditional school districts don't have, and students start leaving to go to your program, all of a sudden they can provide that program. But when there was no competition to make them need to do that, they didn't do that. So it can clearly be the lack of programming, of unique programming that's in your traditional district. And you don't have any charter schools in your district, or you live too far from those other charter schools. It can be any of those things. Just tell me what your need is. For me, and I'll say this probably every meeting, my child goes to East Point, where she speaks Mandarin, and she's in the 6th grade and is fluent in Mandarin. I just took her to New York City. We went to Chinatown, and she spent a whole day just having conversations with all the vendors in Chinatown and had no problems communicating, right? So when they started East Point, there was no language immersion programs in that area. Now, multiple schools have language programs in that area because East Point and their success. So it's okay. You don't have to be like, a failing school district. You just have to come up with why you need a charter school as opposed to a traditional school, or why you need a charter school, even if there is other charter schools, because they don't offer the kind of programming you're looking for. But I do need you to truly, truly research what your program is. Just don't tell me your leadership. I gotta see a curriculum for leadership, because that's where schools get lost. Once they get open, they just get lost in the everydays of all the stuff they have to do for the State Department or their federal money or testing. They lose that if they don't really have that ingrained in their everyday program of their school. Does that make sense? You just become a traditional school with a funky name or a unique name. And that's not what's going to get you. Because when you write your goals, and even after you get approved and we go through your contract together with you, and we're writing this is going to be your goals and what we judge you on, those are going to be mission based, not just testing. So you better be able to have some mission things. So in Damon's issue, if he says he's trying to get kids, if he decides to write one and say it's second chance kids, he's going to show me that he took the kids from here and their gain was here. Even if his testing was here, their personal, each thing was here. That is showing growth. Those are his mission-driven goals. That's what you're looking for, not just this is how we're going to do on state testing. Now, I'm not telling you state testing is not important. It is important, but how we're going to judge you is based on certainly how you do on testing in some ways, but also those mission-driven goals. So anybody, I know there's got to be questions. You got to have something. Or you're thinking, oh my goodness, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to write all this?
Couple. The first one's kind of very generic and maybe a little silly, but so like on the list of parent signatures, if I have someone on the committee that is a notary, can they notarize it, or is that kind of not kosher because they're on the committee?
I would rather not.
Okay. I mean, that's what I was thinking. It kind of sounded like common sense, but.
Right.
And then,
All
so when we, go ahead.
Laura, this, let me be clear here. All they're certifying is that they have seen the list of 300 signatures or however many signatures it is that you said you were going to gather, you had. They're not really saying these people told me they are interested. You've gathered those signatures and that's what they're going to notarize. That it's just a chart that says this is how many we have for each class.
Right, got it.
When you go out and recruit, guys, make sure you are recruiting and you know what course, what class those kids are going to be in. They're going to be in the 4th grade or the 5th grade when your school opens.
Okay. One more question, unless somebody else has one. I don't want to jump anybody.
We can move on. Just go ahead.
So when we're like, for the first town halls that I'm going to hold, should I like create a list of possible needs or just let all that come from the parents? Because I don't want to taint it and put ideas in their head. I want honest feedback of what they feel their need is. Because I can create something, and if they don't agree with it, then I'm not going to have the enrollment that I'm looking for.
Well, put your opinion. These are the things that doesn't mean like, you know, the end all be all. You can start the list, but it's not exhaustive. So, you know, I'm really looking for what are you seeing the need to be?
Got it. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
You know, yeah. I mean, and in your situation, and I don't know about Jimmy, I don't know about the Cherokee schools up there, but in your situation, because you're going to be in Lexington County, you might have a lot of program offers in your Lexington High or your Riverview or River Bluff. Yeah, River Bluff. But then your other schools may not have that kind of offerings out there. That's okay to be your part of your need, right? So you just, there's lots of things that could constitute the need to open this school. And again, let me just be clear. I'm not saying like, if you've got a bunch of people are not happy that schools got consolidated because they don't want to send their kid to a school that's already overrun because they're already putting portables out for those kids, then talk to me about that need and what happens when that you get too big and you lose your small school. Because that small school serves a huge purpose for a lot of kids, particularly when you're thinking, okay, if you're trying to do a small high school and the school down the road has 2,500 kids, there's a bunch of kids that don't function in a 2,500 high school, but they do great in a small 300 kid high school. That's a great need. It's okay. So, Lauren, do you have another question? Go ahead.
No, those were the ones I had.
Okay.
I'm sure I will have a lot more once I get into this, a whole bunch more. But yeah, that was my main two. Right.
So as I've told other people, once you really get your group together, if you guys want me to come and meet your group, I'd be glad to drive up wherever you are and meet with your group and just kind of answer questions, just kind of a one-on-one. And I'll answer any question up to the day you actually have to turn in your application. And then that day I can't answer anymore and I can't help you. But if you want to throw questions at me, I can answer questions about structure and expectations and things like that.
I just had a quick question about the signatures. Thinking ahead, I want to do high school. So I know there's probably going to be if you get approved, you're 2 or 3 years down the road. So should I focus more on those kids? Like right now, my kids will probably be the ones I'm dealing with now might be gone. I graduated or, in the process of leaving. So should I get my signatures and focus more on the middle school side that I know coming?
Yes. So, and let me make a note about what the kind of school that we're talking about. When you're talking a tradition, like not a traditional is not the right word, a regular non-targeted school like you're talking about, Mom, then you can go and recruit and say, hey, we're going to start this, special unique program school over here. Are you interested? And people are going to say yes. If you were to say, if you're what's called an alternative education campus, meaning that you're serving a population that is at risk, whether they've had dealings with the law, they've been in the state system, they are a struggling reader, they have an IEP or 504, there's a whole list of things that can get you on the high risk to get you to be an AEC, an alternative education campus. And what that means is that you won't, there are some provisions that if you are the bottom level of the federal accountability system 3 years in a row on your state report card, you are automatically closed. So right now, our federal system has been postponed and delayed because of COVID and because of changing the system. So, so there's lots of reasons why that's not really happened, but you would not be automatically shut down. Again, that's where your mission-driven goals are looking at, of saying, are you getting these kids to the finish line? Because that's what your mission was. So you may not actually go out there and say, hey, who wants to go to a second chance school? Like, no parent's going to say, yeah, I want to sign up for that because that's my kid's going to need that in a couple of years. So what you're documenting as the need may not be parent signatures. You might have some because they do know their kids kind of in that situation or will not do well in a big 1,600 kid school. Your documentation might be looking at going to the sheriff's department and finding out how many kids have been in DJJ or been arrested or maybe been picked up or let go, just all of that kind of information. How many kids do you know dropped out, are on the verge of dropping out? Any information like that, that will document your need because you have a targeted population that is an at-risk population. So you can have a targeted population, guys, and it's, let's say you want to do a gifted and talented school. Well, then you would need to find all those parents who have already qualified for gifted and talented and say, hey, are you interested in my school? That would be different. You would be required to find parent signatures for that, but not if it's an at-risk school. You just need documentation to show that there's a large amount of kids out there to pull from. If you're just trying to open a school in general with a unique program, then you do need parent signatures. So yes.
I got you.
Yes.
Wait, I'll think of the question in a second.
Okay, that's fine. Hey, Facebook, Instagram, right? That's where it all happens. So have some parent forums that are live and have a bunch of them on Facebook where you're just doing Zoom meetings like we're doing here. You get all kind of people that'll sign up and watch that. And hey, tell me how many likes and how many comments and how many post, whatever they call it, when they'll click on your thing, post interactions. Tell me how many of those are. That's people that are interested in looking. That's important for documentation. Absolutely.
I remember what it was. So you said something earlier about so we know we got a targeted group. So you said that group has to at least make up 20% of the population, or do we need to have more?
Yeah, let me say. So all charter schools must be within 20% of the racial breakdown of the local district. Now you might serve 5 districts. Let's say if you're in Spartanburg and there's 7 school districts in one county, your comparison is where your building is sitting. But if you have a targeted population, then you must compare yourselves to the target population of that local district. So that's a much harder to prove and a lot more research to do, but that is usually kind of helpful though when you're sitting. Let me give you an example of a school that has a hard time with that. Is like Oceanside. They are in Mount Pleasant and they're in the bigger Charleston County. And so they, because Charleston has these subset boards there was a Supreme Court decision, state Supreme Court, about that subset board is the comparison, which made it much easier for them to actually hit their number based on where their building sits and based on what that district is and the breakdown of that district. But if you're, let's say you are in Richland 1 and you have a targeted population, your breakdown, your racial breakdown must match the targeted population that is in Richland 1, even though half or 3/4 of your kids might actually come from Richland 2, but your building is sitting in Richland 1. So it makes it a little harder. It makes it a little harder, but it's certainly, you know, work out, and I'll be glad to help you kind of work on that to make sure that you understand the parameters of that. Yeah. So anybody else have a question?
I had one more. Now, when you post this, like I saw what you posted earlier, but I didn't hear the voice. I just saw the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, so the PowerPoints are on there, but I kind of thought I didn't think this was going to be so hard, but embedding this hour-long video into the website was a little harder. So what we're doing is trying to create a YouTube channel, which I was kind of hoping I would have gotten done today, and I didn't because I need a little help with it. And so Limestone's helping me create a YouTube channel, and I'll post them there. And then I'll put the link on the website, the Limestone website.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
you need to be getting your group together right now, talking about need, doing some research. You don't have to do any writing right this minute. You got about a month before you really got to start writing, but you need to be figuring out and kind of just brainstorming, what kind of program do we want to have? What do we want to look like? What do we want to do? What's our need, you know? And a lot of that information is going to be at the tip of your fingers, just a little Googling, looking at the website, but just what you know in your own community.
I want to say something to Damon. There is what he's looking to do is huge, because I currently work in a youth detention facility, and when these kids leave, they need somewhere to go that is not right back to what got them to where they are, number one. And number two, a lot of them, once being in the facility, don't want to go back to school. So I think what he's doing is going to be huge, and there is a large need for it. So, I mean, if he wants to reach out to me for anything that I can help or provide information on, I am more than willing to assist in that. I think we all should probably exchange information, so when we're stuck on parts of the application, we're like, hey.
I'll create that. Again, you are welcome to ask me anything up till the day you turn it in. Got it? Okay, it is 6:56. Time for one more question, and then I will see you in 2 weeks.
Hey, just one question from me. You mentioned a couple of times numbers. Are there recommended target numbers that are going to help with getting approved? Obviously, if you're going to apply for a school of 50 kids, that's not enough. But are there recommended target numbers?
Yeah.
Or no?
So it all depends on these things. How much is your rent?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a mortgage or just a rent, right? What does the population look like? So if you just have your average, whoever comes, right? No target populations, you know, in that first year, and again, depending on what grade you're doing,
right,
200 kids is kind of a good start. It actually gives you enough budget to be functional, and it's not going to press you into one person has to do 15 jobs.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit. You said how many?
200 is kind of a rule of thumb, and that is just a non-targeted population. So right. As you get money, and we'll talk more about this in the finances, but you know, you get a base amount. You're going to get base unit cost, which right now is like $25.16 plus $3,600 for the proviso, because you get no local money. All your money state and federal, right? And then if that child fits into a special category of special ed, gifted and talented, pupils in poverty, English as second language. There's more money that's associated with those kids. If they're high school kids and they take a career and technology education course, there's more money to that. If not, if that kid doesn't fit any of those other categories, that's what you've got is 2516 plus 3600. That's what you've got per kid to work with for the year. So you've got everything comes out of that, except that you will get some federal money. You will get some special ed money for IDA money, special ed money. You will get some Title II, which is professional development, and you will get some other little pots of money here and there. But those are typically based on your population. Your general fund is based on just rear ends and seats. So 200 kids is a good start. Now, that means that you have a mortgage or you have a pretty good sizable rent. If you don't have that, because you've got some kind of philanthropist that's going to give you some space or it's really, really cheap space, you can probably go with less kids. But shoot for at least 200.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay, 2 weeks from now, we'll continue. And hopefully in 2 weeks from now, you've started doing some research and writing. And maybe, we'll hold a few minutes to kind of have some little bit of discussion maybe there. If you've done that, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be glad to come and meet with your group and just have a kind of some one-on-one time. So you can ask me anything altogether. That's fine too. I'll be glad to do that. And then we'll just keep going. Okay. Also, let me put a plug in that if you are considering, if you're really considering doing that, you might look at the South Carolina Public Charter School Alliance website. They have a conference that's in November. And they typically will let you come very cheaply because you don't have a school yet, because you're in application stage. And that's where you just meet everybody in charter school world. It's really, really helpful. And I will be there. So you might start looking into that. So the South Carolina Public Charter School Alliance. Look at that. Okay. The lady's name is Carol Ost. So I'll put a plug in for her and going to her conference to really help you meet a bunch of people. You'll meet a lot of financial people there, insurance, curriculum, all sorts of people will be there and other schools. And that's who you really want to meet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I am done for the night. So contact me if you want to. Everybody's got my phone number, right? 803-665-2011. Feel free to call me. And if not, I hope to talk to you in 2 weeks. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, appreciate it.